Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell, and we are creativity coaches who help people clarify and accomplish their creative goals.
Know that just by listening to this podcast, you're joining a warm and wonderful clan of creatives.
But hold up, you may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File?
Well, a Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all of your inspirations and fascinations. Every episode, we're going to reach into our Spark Files and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're going to talk to some folks who spark us too.
And your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to take some of those sparks of inspiration and make something of your own. So without further ado, let's open up
The Spark File.
Laura Camion.
Susan Blackwell.
You know, I love podcast day.
I know it's podcast day. It's super fun.
I love it.
Looked at my calendar and I was like, I have a really full day and it ends with podcasting. So come on.
Can I, before we jump into your beautiful, beautiful spark,
Yeah.
I want to share something with you and with our listeners.
Okay.
This is an invention that was created by a spark filer named Jess Edelstein.
Oh.
It's called Moops. You can't see it, listener, but I'm holding it up
Moops.
and showing it to Laura Camion. It is for people like myself who are a touch lactose intolerant.
Amazing.
And this is not her first product that
No,
she's
it's not.
invented, but oh my God, it may be the best.
You have told
I
me this
love
was
it.
life-changing and I've passed it on to my lactose intolerant friends.
Okay. So instead of taking like a chalky tablet, it comes in this really cool, it's so good. It's so substantial, but it comes in this little squirt
Pump.
bottle.
Yeah, it's
And
like a pump.
I just literally pump it into my mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4. It tastes great.
Amazing.
The flavors are great. My favorite is vanilla. There is a vanilla flavor that is so good, and I'm trying to take in a lot of protein, and as a result, I'm eating a lot of cottage cheese and I'm eating a lot of yogurt. And so I'm taking Moops like it's my job, and it's holding me together. It's
Listen,
so good.
You are the Moops ambassador. To be
I-
honest, Susan, I didn't even know you were lactose intolerant.
Well, it's just when I'm taking in that much dairy, it really makes my tummy rumble.
I had no idea, and this has brought us closer. I feel like I've learned something new
more
about
you know.
you.
Listen, but I really want to shout out this. This is not a paid endorsement. I bought my own Moops. These were not gifted.
No, but you are
Moops.
angling for the Moops ambassador job, and I think you're first in line. I
feel
really
like
do.
a first Moops influencer. It's so
Yes.
good. The packaging is so cute. It's so satisfying. I
And we're so
cannot
proud of
recommend it
Jess.
highly enough. And if I didn't feel that way, I would not be saying these words, but
Nope.
I freaking love it.
You would keep quiet, is what you would do. I know
would.
that about you.
But
And
man, do I love the
you
Moops.
have shouted it from the mountaintops, and I think that it's incredible.
I love
I
it.
think Jess is incredible. We love Jess, and so
It's a great product.
It's so great when you can like really endorse something full force, 100% Spark File approved.
And when you're trying to eat healthy, I'm trying to eat healthy. This is the best tasting thing I eat all day is this Moops right here. I'm like, I get my Moops shot. It's so good.
It's going to
Anyway.
be its own dessert. It's going to be its own little thing. You could have
Yeah,
like,
just a little thimble of
it
moops.
doesn't have anything to do with whether you're lactose intolerant. Just have some moops.
Moops 3 ways. It's so good. Anyway, I understand that you have a spark for me.
It's me turn. I've got a spark for you. And once again, I've got a spark that's too big for these pants. I've got an extra large turtle in an extra small shell. But I'm going to put it out there and we're going to do our best. I'm going to pull out a few concepts that we can explore together. And then everybody can go off and do their extended studies on their own. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
And as you like to say, Susan, it's the very best kind of homework because we will never know whether or not any of our listeners actually did it.
The best.
So, Suze, I am sparked today and most days by Rick Rubin's book called The Creative Act, A Way of Being.
Oh, hells yes.
Yeah,
Hells yes.
You've heard me talk about this before, but I'm going to get specific and jump into some things today. So this book came out last year. I jumped on it immediately because I love a good creativity book. And of course, Rick Rubin has his own unique perspective on all of it, but I was really excited to read it and to feel so aligned in so many ways. Like, it's very validating to hear someone with his experience, decades and decades and decades of experience, describe so many things that we talk about like in a very similar way. So there's so many gems of inspiration in this book. It really balances the spiritual and mystical side of creativity with the practical side of creativity. He's got great ways of explaining what happens during the creative process. And as you know, we believe like there is something magical to the act of creation, without a doubt. But it's also wonderful to parse out the parts of it that are learnable so that we can invite in the magical. As always, one of our intentions is to help other people feel not so alone on the journey. So, with your consent, dear listener, I would like to make a bold recommendation. Not only should you dive into this book as soon as possible, I would recommend specifically that you get the audio version. And if you like to go on long walks, as I do, just put it on, put it in your ears, and let yourself go into a meditative state with Rick Rubin. It is transcendent. It really is. I mean, his voice, like he speaks about creativity in a way that many of us feel creativity. Like, it's almost spiritual. His voice is so clear and reverent. There's even like a little gong in between each chapter. I actually might go so far as to say don't listen while driving. Like, it has that kind of like, it's so meditative, you may fall into a trance. For me anyway, when I would be walking to it, I would hear something of his and then my mind would go on a journey and then I would come back and be like, wait a second, hold up. I think I missed half of this chapter because my mind went somewhere. Nice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. So today I want to do a deep dive into my favorite topic, which is creativity, with my favorite partner in crime, creative crime, which is Susan Blackwell.
Creative crime.
Oops. I'm a repeat offender. What a nerd. I'm such a nerd. Okay. I better move on to Rick Rubin because I'm a weirdo. All right. So let's just start with who is Rick Rubin, in case you're wondering how and why does this guy know so much about creativity. If you're not familiar with Rick Rubin, from his very own website, you can learn that he is a 9-time Grammy-winning producer. He was named one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time magazine and the most successful producer in any genre by Rolling Stone. He has collaborated with artists from Tom Petty to Adele, Johnny Cash to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Beastie Boys.
Beasties, yeah.
I was going to say Susie's favorite, Beastie Boys, to Slayer. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Although I respect Slayer.
You love Slayer.
I couldn't name a song of theirs, but I do respect them.
But the breadth of his work,
breadth.
my God.
I haven't even mentioned Kanye West to The Strokes, System of a Down to Jay-Z. I mean, it's
that's
just
amazing. He's amazing.
He's amazing. So he's very well versed in bringing a creative expression to life, like from the germ of an idea to its full expression. And his forte has been in record producing and music very specifically, but the principles that he talks about apply to all kinds of creative expression. So I'm just going to get into a few highlights here. First up, I love how Rick Rubin describes the fact that everyone is creative. He likens it to nature and how nature is continually creating and recreating, and so are we. He says this: regardless of whether or not we're formally making art, we are all living as artists. We perceive, filter, and collect data, then curate an experience for ourselves and others based on this information set. Whether we do this consciously or unconsciously, by the mere fact of being alive, we are active participants in the ongoing process of creation. He goes on to say, to live as an artist is a way of being in the world, a way of perceiving, a practice of paying attention, refining our sensitivity to tune into the more subtle notes, looking for what draws us in and what pushes us away, noticing what feeling tones arise and where they lead. Attuned choice by attuned choice, your entire life is a form of self expression. You exist as a creative being in a creative universe, a singular work of art. Suze, as you well know, we both believe there is no greater work of art you can create than your life itself. How you mark your days, friends, this is it.
Yes.
How you spend your precious time on earth, crafting the next chapter of your life so that it is as full of joy and wonder and aliveness as possible. This is the most worthy creative project we can imagine. And the thing is, Rick Rubin points this out. We can do this consciously or unconsciously, but either way, we are creating our lives. I'm a big proponent of being as conscious as possible, making attuned choice after attuned choice so that you get to experience as much of the goodness in life as possible. And again, he talks about creativity as a way of being in the world, meaning it's not about the output. It's not as much about what you have accomplished or made. It's about the way you move through the world with curiosity and openness and attention. And it really reminds me of the way that we talk about the spark generation phase in the creative process, Suze. Like, we're always talking about it being a state of mind, like remaining open and present to life. It's a way of moving in the world where you're present to the ideas and the images and the inspiration all around you. Rick Rubin writes it in this way: broadening our practice of awareness is a choice we can make at any moment. It is not a search, though it is stoked by a curiosity or hunger. A hunger to see beautiful things, hear beautiful sounds, feel deeper sensations, to learn and to be fascinated and surprised on a continual basis. I loved that so much because I just think about, all right, we've told many of our clients this, Suze. I'm not sure if we've talked about this on the podcast or not. But forgive me if I'm repeating, friends, but when we first began dreaming up the Spark File podcast, it was born out of us questioning what we want the next chapter of our lives to look like. Specifically, we believed that we could create the lives we wanted to be living. And on the one hand, we knew we wanted to put to use all of the creative skills we had acquired over our lifetime by helping other people achieve their creative goals. But it was not entirely like altruistic and unselfish, because we also knew that it was important to us that we continue to grow and learn, engage our brains, and be inspired. And we wanted to craft a way of life where the mindset of curiosity and inspiration was built into the fabric of our everyday.
Like this podcast.
Like this podcast. That's it. And that's how we came up with the idea of the Spark File. Like, what if we were always seeking, always bringing our attention to the things that intrigued us, things that expanded our minds or engaged our imaginations? And what if we shared those inspirations with other people? Maybe we could multiply and amplify the amount of inspiration in the world and potentially the amount of creative work that gets done. I mean, that was so thrilling. The idea of that, the prospect of that was like, it was just one of those moments where we were like, yes, that's it. That if we could live our lives that way every day, we would be fulfilling so much inside of ourselves and encouraging it in others. So when I read about Rick Rubin saying we can consciously create our lives and we can choose to be in a mindset of receiving the beauty and the sensations in life, I'm just like jumping up and down in my chair, like, yes, you really can. We have done it. We are living it. You can do it. Listener, you can do it. So that got me super juiced. And that's pretty early on in the book. So, of course, I'm like, I am all in. Another topic that he covers in various chapters is self-doubt and the various places in the creative process where people tend to get stuck. And he offers up one of the very best ways that we know how to keep going, and that is to lower the stakes. Lower the stakes. He says, and you know I felt this, Susan, we tend to think that what we're making is the most important thing in our lives and that it is going to define us for all eternity. And you know, Susan, we have talked about this before. Like, that thought kept me from creating for so long. Because I had a friend, air quotes, friend, who read my work, and I think it was maybe only like the second play I'd written. And she said, "Ew, I don't know why you always have to write these like women's stories."
Wow.
And I was gutted. I was so gutted that I could not think of what to say in the moment.
Wow.
But as I reflected on it, I was really pissed. And I wondered, like, how many people had said to Sam Shepard, dude, you can't be writing only these stories about dudes. Like, do you really want to be known for only dude stories? I don't think anybody asked Sam Shepard that. I don't think anybody said, you can't base a whole career just writing about men. That was such a paralyzing thing for me, because the idea of my creative work defining me in a particular way slowed me down. And what it caused me to do is filter every bit of work that I started through this lens of like, will this work show everything that I'm capable of? Will it show that I'm funny? Will it show that I'm smart? Will it make people feel deeply? Will it show substance and style? Will it be life-changing? I mean, it's an impossible criteria. It's impossible. And when I look back on it now, I feel sad, because there are so many things I thought about writing and I didn't write them because they did not fill that criteria.
Wow.
Obviously, nothing could. And yet, if I had written all of them individually, instead of just one single play defining me, at this point, a lifetime of work could define me. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I do. I'm also thinking about Rick Rubin talking about lowering the stakes as a way to free your creative self-expression. And he is working with I high visibility, high
Very,
stakes artists.
very. Yes. And he goes on to say that all of us should consider moving forward. mm, That all of us should consider moving forward with a more accurate point of view that it's a small work, it's a beginning. And the
Huh.
only mission is to complete the project so that you can move on to the next. The next one is a stepping stone to the following work. And so it continues in
Mm.
productive rhythm for the entirety of your creative life. So instead of thinking, oh, this piece of work has to represent everything about me, this piece of work only needs to be complete. And then I'll move on to the next piece of work. That's it.
I'm fascinated by this. I'm fascinated by this in the context of his life. And I think it's a mindset game that he doesn't get when he's in a studio with Adele and they're making something together. That could really, if you were a certain kind of person, that could really make you quite anxious.
Oh,
Or,
sure. That this work has to top my last work.
but if
This
he's
work
just
has
like,
to
we're
be
just going to do
better
the best thing, we're going to complete the best thing that we can, that
in this
this
moment.
version of Adele and this version of Rick Rubin can
This
complete in this moment.
just needs to be the expression of who you are and what you're thinking and feeling in this moment. And
Wow.
then we'll move on to the next. And he says it's helpful to see the piece we're working on as an experiment.
That
And
is
Susan,
great.
again, when our coach, Jennifer Rosenfeld, introduced us to the concept of what if it's all an experiment?
Yes.
Years ago, that was a game changer for us because I don't think this will surprise anyone, and I hope you don't mind me speaking for you too. But we both have a touch of perfectionism
Uh-huh.
in us, and it
Uh-huh.
can slow us down.
Uh-huh.
And thinking of building the Spark file as an experiment was such a gift. It gave
Yeah.
us permission to try things, to let things not be perfect, to learn things, and then integrate the learnings, which I think we always have. Like we really try to listen to our clients, listen to, people that feedback from things that people have worked with us on, and always like fine tuning and fine tuning, and it's a lifesaver. It's a game changer, friends. If you can adopt this idea for your creative work, you're guaranteed, I promise you, you will see huge leaps and bounds in your creative life. If you can see it all as an experiment,
Mm.
turn down the stakes, lower the stakes, I think about this a lot, and I've said this in some of our classes, but like the sole purpose, the only thing a first draft has to do is exist. That's it. That is the goal of a first draft, is to exist. Lower those stakes. Your first draft does not have to be the thing you think you're handing into a publisher or the thing you think that's going to open on Broadway tomorrow. Like those are such extreme, big, big, big pressure situations that will stop you from even putting the next little blurb on the page.
Yeah.
Lower those stakes. Lower those stakes. So, yes, I feel like with the Spark file, probably me personally, probably the first time. Number one, it's like probably the thing I'm most proud of, but also it's the first time that I allowed myself to think of something as an experiment.
Mm.
I've got all these scripts and
Mhm.
things that I like, well, it's not everything. It's not every possible
Yeah.
thing it could be. Um, and I finally, I feel like, learned how to lower the stakes and how to let something be an experiment that you keep learning and growing from over and over again.
Mhm.
So Ruben also really emphasizes intuition over technique. Like he really believes that creating the work is only for you. He says the audience comes last, meaning first and foremost,
Yes.
it needs to please you. And by doing that, you are
Yes.
likely to find your audience. The personal is universal. So rather than trying to predict what some imaginary person is going to think of your work, make it so you love it, that you would change nothing about it, and then release it into the world with no expectation of outcome.
This reminds me, Laura, of when we were leading a workshop for the Miranda Family Fellows at the beautiful United
Oh
Palace.
my gosh, that
And
was
then
awesome.
in that, sitting in that big circle in discussion with Lin-Manuel Miranda, and he was talking about how the song needs to move you first. It needs to
That's
make
right.
you cry first. It needs to touch you first,
That's right.
long before you are even concerned about what impact it's going to have on anybody
And if it
else.
doesn't do that, like go no further. Like it has to move you.
Yeah.
And for it to do that, you've got to get in touch with your likes and your dislikes and
Yeah.
what resonates for you. And the idea of then releasing it with no attachment to the outcome, that's an idea we talk a lot about,
Yeah. Yep.
releasing the need for a particular outcome. In the Spark File, we talk about that. And oftentimes we talk about it specifically as it relates to like reaching out to a person or asking for something like a collaboration, etc. We believe you should extend the kindest, most honest ask that you can and then release the attachment to the outcome.
Yep.
But this can and should apply to releasing your work into the world as well. Rubin writes, when you believe the work before you is the single piece that will forever define you, ugh, it's difficult to let it go.
It's too much.
It's too
Yeah.
much. He says the urge for perfection is overwhelming. Releasing a work into the world becomes easier when we remember that each piece can never be a total reflection of us. It can only be a reflection of who we are in this moment. This idea that the work is for you, a reflection of you in this moment, and Rubin's encouragement to get to know what you like, trust your intuition, that is something so aligned with what we believe in. At the Spark File, our goal is for you to become more of you, for you
Yes.
to become the artist that you were meant to be. And that
Yes.
is different than the artist that Susan Blackwell is or the artist that I am. We're not trying to get you to do or be or express anything other than what you were meant to express in a way that only you could express it.
Yeah. I think that has changed a lot over time. I think about the training that we received when we
Oh,
were coming up through acting school, et cetera, where it was sort of like, we're going to break you down so we
yep.
can rebuild you. And we want to rebuild you in a model that is going to be very appealing and castable. So it's going to fit into a predetermined form or type.
Yep.
And I think that there is much more emphasis, I hope there's much more emphasis now on bringing forward the most unique self-expressed version of yourself as an
Yeah.
artist.
I hope there's more of that, Suze. I think we may be more attuned to those messages in the world because that's what we look for and who we
Yes.
are.
Yeah.
But you can learn technique at any number of schools or any class if you want to learn technique. But learning to find your unique voice and your own point of view is its own journey.
Yeah.
And I would say that it is an essential part of the creative process. And you can layer on technique on top of that, which is great. But that you being the most you that you can
Mhm.
be and expressing yourself in the way that you were meant to and that only you can
Goes a long way.
goes a long, long way. And that's one of the reasons why our feedback process is focused on the artist. Like the artist decides what they need,
Yes.
what feedback they're looking for, and it is our job to support them. It's not about following our instructions, it's about them following their own intuition. Rick Rubin says, we are dealing in a magic realm. Nobody knows why or how it works. And I think that is the truth. If you're looking for someone to tell you exactly how to express yourself, you won't find a satisfying answer because the answer is within you. What you really have control over is your own mindset, the time and space that you dedicate to your creative vision, and the mentors and supportive community you surround yourself with. That is what you can control. And I will leave it there for now. But there is so much more in this book, The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I highly recommend it. Take a look or take a listen. It's like a little gift to your creative spirit.
Laura, what a great spark. And I have admired this book. It looks like a piece of modern art.
Yep.
Which I love.
Yep. 100%. And it's all just so validating for the artist it's both validating and encouraging, and the hardest thing that most artists know how to do, which is follow their own unique intuition and their own unique creative voice.
I love this. What a great spark.
I'm so happy to share. It makes me very happy. And truly, it's all part of like making sure that none of us feel alone on this crazy journey. Like there are pieces of this creative process that can be learned by all of us, and the rest of it that is unlearnable, we can simply support each other in it.
Yeah,
It's
I love
the magical
that.
and the mystical.
The magic realm. Yeah,
that's right.
I love that. Oh, Laura, good spark. All right, that's it. This episode of the Spark File was made on the lands of the Lenape and the Mohican people. And as always, we hope this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen, if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you'd like to learn more about how to coach with us to accomplish your creative goals, email getcreative@thesparkfile.com, or you can reach us through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, we would like you to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
You can follow us on social at The Spark File, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and 5-star review this podcast. If you take that little action, it really helps other listeners to find us. Also, if you liked this podcast, we hope you'll share it with people that you love. And if you didn't like it, if it made you go, ooh, ew, ew, then
trust
you can
that
just
intuition.
Trust that intuition. Listen to another podcast, lower the stakes.
Gong. If something lights you up and gets your creative sparks flying, we're writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take that spark and fan it into a flame.
You know, you got to take it and
make it.
Gong.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.